Good evening, folks, and welcome to the horror. Hail, behemoth, father of my life, speak now, come now, rise now, from the forests, from the furrows, from the fields, and live. Hail, behemoth, spirit of the dark, take thou my blood, my flesh, my skin, and walk. Hail, behemoth, father of my life, speak now, come now, rise now, from the forest, from the furrows, from the fields, and live. Hail, behemoth, spirit of the dark, take thou my blood, my flesh, my skin, and walk. Hail, behemoth, I give you the top 10 occult horror films of all time. Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Urshan, and this week we are counting down the top 10 occult and satanic-themed horror films of all time. At least in my opinion, of course. So we're going to start, as I usually like to do, with a couple of honorable mentions. First one would be Children of the Corn, based on the story by Stephen King, starring Linda Hamilton and Peter Horton. And A Cult of Children. What can be scarier than that? Next honorable mention would be Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. Yes. You probably wouldn't expect to see that on the list, but there is a cult that's heavily involved in this film, as you probably know. And at first, when I went to see this film in theaters, I didn't care for it. I thought it was kind of ridiculous. But it's certainly grown on me over the years, and I do kind of like the concept of the cult surrounding Michael Myers, you know. It does give some kind of background onto how Michael is, and why he's so unstoppable, and we have John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness in at number 10. A really great film, very underrated. You don't hear it talked about enough. It's even got Alice Cooper in there. Brilliant direction by John Carpenter, awesome score, very scary, starring the legendary Donald Pleasance. And, it does deal with the devil in the form of this, weird ooze type stuff. Very interesting movie, very different, very interesting way to handle the subject matter. And yes, I am going there in that number 9. It's Taste the Blood of Dracula. You might think that's a weird choice, but if you watch the film, it's not. Because in this film, they use black magic and a black mass ritual to conjure up Dracula. So yes, very interesting way of bringing Dracula about this time, which I thought was kind of unique and different, and an interesting way to kind of continue the franchise. I liked it, and it makes perfect sense to me where Dracula is like the ultimate evil, you know. And, you see in all these classic vampire movies, what is it that usually kills Dracula? The power of good represented by the Catholic religion through the cross, or, holy water, or whatever, So it makes perfect sense. Next one is a more recent film, Midsommar, directed by Ari Aster, the director of Hereditary. A really good film, really interesting. And it definitely falls into that category of kind of folk horror. This young girl who's had a tragic situation happen to her, kind of goes with her boyfriend, who they're kind of estranged, but they kind of go off on this trip because they think it would be fun, a good time, and may rekindle their sparks, and they go to this secluded commune with a group of friends. And, they think they're just going there to party and smoke pot and drink and have a good time out in the wilderness or whatever. And it turns out to be a pagan cult. And things go horribly wrong. Next up is Suspiria, directed by the legendary Dario Argento. And I think it's his best film, and maybe the best Italian horror film ever made, possibly. Phenomenal visuals, phenomenal score, the direction is just brilliant, and I love the story of this, this girl who goes to this supposedly professional dancing school, like a big-time dance academy, to, become a professional ballet dancer. But there's a lot more going on to this school than meets the eye. It turns out to be a witch cult. And they're trying to recruit this young girl to join them. Of course, we don't find that out till like later on in the film, but it's a great film. Next we have The Devil Rides Out from Hammer Films, starring the great Christopher Lee in a rare good guy role. A friend of his, he comes to visit after they haven't seen each other in a while, and he finds that his friend is kind of wrapped up in this satanic cult, these devil worshippers. And they're into some really crazy stuff, And the stuff they're into seems to be working because the devil himself actually shows up. So it's up to Christopher Lee to help him get out of it and escape this evil cult. Next up, a classic British horror film, also considered to be in the folk horror genre, starring the lovely Linda Hayden, who you might know from Taste the Blood of Dracula and other classic British films. Excellent movie, highly underrated. You don't hear it talked about enough, but I think it's a classic. It involves this guy who finds the remains of a human skull, or it looks like it might have been a human skull at one time, but it's seriously deformed and hideous, and there's like fur growing out of it, and what happens is the man touches it, and it ends up, spreading throughout this little village, and, everyone turns into Satan's servants, and before you know it, Satan himself appears, and this young girl, beautiful girl, Angel Blake, is kind of at the center of it. How appropriate that her name is Angel, and she kind of runs the cult and leads everyone to the cult, and things go horribly wrong from there, And people get offed one by one in grisly fashion. And they're looking for the ultimate virgin for their sacrifice. Of course, the Omen's got to be on there. Absolutely phenomenal film, and You're dealing with the son of Satan himself, Damien. Excellent film, and of course this was kind of an answer, I think, to the success of The Exorcist. But the fact that they put so much care and love and attention to it is what makes it so great. You got phenomenal acting, some of the best acting you'll ever see in a horror film. And I love how subtle it is with Damien, and how he makes people's deaths look like accidents. It looks like natural causes, you know, but of course it's him doing it. He's just controlling the situations and making bad things happen. I love how it's so subtle. He's not like shooting fire out of his hands or anything ridiculous like that. It makes it so much more realistic, you know. And of course, how could you not have The Exorcist? Here you're dealing with demonic possession. Now, phenomenal cast. Again, some of the best acting you'll ever see in a horror film. You got Max von Sydow is brilliant, Jason Miller is brilliant, and of course Linda Blair as the young Regan who is possessed by the devil. And it's so powerful, I think, because of the way the Catholic religion is represented so well, and that makes it all the much more powerful. It's that classic good versus evil story, you know, and trying to cast the demon out of Regan. And, yeah. And there's also some speculation as to whether Regan is actually possessed or it's all in her head. You know, is it just a psychological thing where she's got mental issues? But by the end, you know it's for real. Next up, we have Rosemary's Baby. Yes. An absolutely phenomenal film, which I consider to be the best slow burn horror movie of all time. The way the tension just mounts throughout, and it just goes deeper and deeper. And you know, when the film starts out, it's almost like an Audrey Hepburn or Marilyn Monroe movie, but it gets darker and darker as it goes on. As we find out that young Mia Farrow's neighbors are not quite what they seem. They first seem like this charming old couple, but they lure this young couple in, Mia Farrow's character and her husband, into this satanic cult, this group of witches that are into black magic stuff, you know. And it's crazy. They want her baby, you know. They want their baby for their own. As Rosemary is actually impregnated by the devil. So yeah, their plan is to raise the devil's son here on Earth. And of course, in that number one, was it even a question? Of course, it's The Wicker Man. Obviously, I'm talking about the 1973 classic starring Christopher Lee and Edward Woodward. An absolutely phenomenal film. Many would consider it to be the greatest British horror film of all time. Involving this old religion, this pagan cult. This police officer, played by Edward Woodward, is sent to this Scottish island to find the missing girl, and she ends up being kind of tied into this pagan cult led by Christopher Lee, who plays the Lord Summerisle. Definitely one of his greatest performances of all time, I would say. And you know, it turns out that they're just using him because he's the ultimate like virgin. He's like this very religious, very strict Catholic, you know, totally against everything that they're all about, and they think he'd be the perfect guy to sacrifice in their rituals, and they sacrifice him in the huge, giant wicker man that you see here at the end of the film and burn him up. Insane stuff. Awesome movie, incredible. So yeah, that's it, guys. That's the top 10 occult horror films. And thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Urshan, in the Horror Corner. Tune in and stay scared.